Alrighty tighty folks, in deviation from the standard, today we're not actually doing any cars, even though I'm using the car intro. That is merely to give me time to intro. Today we are cooking some, well, white cheese sauce, Alfredo more specifically. This was recorded at my mom's house in Arizona, even though, again, the intro is my home in Utah. And here we are in Arizona. Obviously, the first thing you do is you get all your ingredients sorted, get everything set out and organized for however it is that you feel comfortable when you cook things, when you organize things, when you set things up. There's no point in setting it up the way I set it up, because that maybe doesn't work for you. Maybe the way you do it is different. Maybe your kitchen is shaped different. Whatever. So first thing we're doing is we're just grabbing spices and the cheese and the milk and everything. And we've got a number of different cheeses here. We've got Parmesan, we've got Asiago, we've got Romano, and Fontina. We've also got some spices. We've got basil, cilantro, some garlic powder. I like to use whole, like actual real garlic, minced garlic in my Alfredo, but I forgot to get some at the store, so I didn't have garlic for the Alfredo. But fresh garlic in Alfredo just kind of honestly finalizes and makes the dish really, really good. You can see I've got a little cheap eBay cheese shredder there, grater I guess. Makes it so much easier. Even this little cheap $20 guy, I ended up having to epoxy the whole bottom end of it because it broke the first time we used it. It's cheap, it's 20 bucks, you get what you pay for, but fill the whole bottom of it with epoxy such that you can still take it off and put it on the base, and you can stick it in a dishwasher and it's fine. It works just fine. I wouldn't stick it in the dishwasher with the base the way it's designed. I'd wash it by hand. But the whole bottom end is filled with epoxy, so it's fine. And the first thing, obviously, you should do before you do anything else, because it takes the longest time, even with this grater, is grating your cheese and setting it all to the side. When I make Alfredo, I make a big old pot of it. It's probably, I don't know, 3 quarts worth of Alfredo. And so I just use a block of Parmesan, a wedge, I guess, not a block. Wedge of Parmesan, wedge of Asiago, Romano, and Fontina. The Fontina really, I've been putting it in like every cheese sauce that I make lately, because it just kind of, it doesn't really impart that much of its own flavor to the dish, but it makes it really, really creamy. Fontina, it gives it a kind of a creamy, smooth taste, or it's not even the texture. It's I don't know. It's very, very good. Regardless, it's delicious. I recently made a nacho cheese sauce and I put a little bit too much Gouda in it. Should have went with more cheddar, so it was a bit, nutty-ish, which is fine. I like it regardless because I love cheese. And I've almost finished that off, so it's about time to make some more. I've got some cheddar and some Colby Jack. You see me there putting some Parmesan to the side because my mom had some pizza left over that we'd made a few days before this that she wanted some Parmesan as topping. We also had some feta. And I've never tried to melt feta. I don't think feta melts easily. I have no idea. I should try that one day. But that's not today. Today is Alfredo Day, not Experiment Day. And besides the fact that at this point we don't really have the money to be experimenting anyway, so not like it's really gonna happen all that much. And this little grater thing kind of bugs the crap out of me, because the little, that output nozzle, whatever the heck you'd call that, really isn't big enough. It comes out to just the end of the base, so you spill a bunch of it on the counter as it just spills out of the little output hole. If that thing was, I don't know, 3 centimeters longer, it would be so much better. And what I'm going to do for the one here in Utah at home is eventually I'm going to 3D print a little kind of push-on adapter thing for that thing so it just comes out into a bowl or a plate more easily. Probably a plate, because it'll have to sit at an angle so the cheese just comes out. Also, the cheese likes to get itself on wetter cheeses, at least. It likes to jam itself up inside the drum of the grater. So you have to kind of stick your finger or some fork or something in there to get it out sometimes, which is fine. It's a minor, slight annoyance, not a big deal. If the grater drum sat at a steeper angle, it wouldn't be as big a deal. So it's like, technically I should just design my own outer housing, use the drum and handle and base, but design my own outer housing that does a better job than this. It would be bigger, it'd be a little bit larger than this, but I think I could do probably a better job. And then you've got the problem of, is 3D printed stuff really safe to eat? The answer is mostly no. Just because of the ridges and the ribs from the layers and bacteria and water and mold and all that stuff can get in there, and unless you're sterilizing it every time you use it, you'll never get rid of it or get it fully clean, so it's this whole kind of brouhaha and whatever. It's fine. We're not worrying about it. When you finally get your cheese shredded, step number 1 is going to be making a roux, which is butter and a starch of some kind. It could be cornstarch, it could be flour. I'm sure you could use like potato starches, or I was about to say cornstarch, which I already said. But I suspect any plant starch would work just fine. You need a fat and a starch. That's kind of what you need. You need a fat and a starch. So you could probably use lard if you wanted to make a roux. I don't know that it would work the same, but I don't know that it wouldn't. I should try that out. But you sprinkle in your starch, you give it all. I use a whisk. A whisk makes it a really quick job of it. And you make your roux so it's not quite a paste. It's still liquid, but it's a fliquid. Thickwid. Flickwood. I don't know. It's kind of thickish. And then, depending on the kind of sauce you're making, you heat it up to a specific color. I went with a light blonde roux for the Alfredo sauce because it's a white sauce. And the darker the roux is, the more flavor it will impart on the end dish, and a couple of other things. You can look it up. Don't take my word for it. Absolutely look up stuff on your own. Don't just follow things I do blindly. Never do that. But after your roux is the correct color, or correct cookedness, you add in, I use heavy cream. Some people use, you can use sour cream. You can use just whole milk. You can use half and half, which is heavy cream and whole milk, I think. I don't remember. But it's effectively what I'm doing here. But I portion it based on how it looks and mixes and feels. And then you wait for those to warm up. You see there, I put in the basil and cilantro and my spices, and they float on top because they're dried leaves and they don't mix really well. So you see, I gotta just sit there and stir it. But you also want to continue stirring it so that you don't get any kind of burned bits. But you should also be at medium heat on this. When you start to see the steam coming off of your roux milk, you can begin adding your cheese. It is hot enough to begin melting the cheese. Depending on the cheeses you use, you might need to do it in stages. Harder cheeses take longer to melt, so you'd want to put them in earlier than softer cheeses if you're mixing types of cheeses. But all of these were about the same. The Fontina is a good bit softer and wetter than the Parmesan, but by the time the Parmesan melts, it works out. It's you want everything to melt evenly, and you don't want to put too much heat, especially into dairy heavy sauces, because you get protein separation, etc., etc. And I like my mom's whisk. It's got a round handle, so I could just mixing bowl it in the pan there. That was quite good, actually. Took very little effort. But you can see there, I spin it so that I can A, stir things off of the bottom easily of the pan. Being a stainless steel pan, it is more prone to burning things to the side than, say, a Teflon pan, which I prefer. You can tell me how unsafe it is all you want. Your pans rarely reach 500 degrees, and if they do, you've already put a bunch of smoke into your house anyway. Don't worry about it. But the reason I'm doing it sideways and stirring from the bottom up is to see when the cheese has fully melted. Once you no longer get chunks or strings on your whisk, you wait another minute or so, because there are still going to be some tiny little clumps in there, and you should be able to see these when you stir. And depending on your cheese to liquid ratios, you may or may not be able to see it more easily or less easily. But you just continue stirring and never really let it sit for too long without, especially, again, stainless steel pans. You don't want to let it sit for too long, because stuff will start to stick to the sides and then it'll burn, and that imparts nasty flavors into your dish, even if you scoop it all out, and it's just really not a good day. But once it is almost completely melted, we take it off the heat, and we continue stirring for a little bit during the first couple of minutes of set time. Because something people a lot of times forget about is set time. Your food continues to cook after you remove it for the heat as it is cooling off, because there is still heat inside of it. This dish was chicken Alfredo, and we used, I prefer mini penne, because it's kind of like, it reminds me of gushers, right? Kind of like shells, but shells cook funny, so I prefer penne, where the sauce will go inside, and then when you eat it, you get, a good bit of sauce. I like my noodles to swim in sauce. I don't like just a little tiny of sauce on top. I like it more soupy. Probably get that from my late wife. She liked her pastas soupy. I was ambivalent mostly until we met. I don't know. People change you, right? But this was going to be chicken Alfredo, so we chop up the chicken into little square chunks. Most of the dishes that I make with chicken are just square chunk chicken. It's really easy to do, only takes a few minutes. And these cuts of chicken were really, really bad. Whoever cut them, I don't think they knew what they were doing. They left all kinds of bones and blood vessels and, I don't know, just sinew and not things you want to end up chewing on when you're trying to eat some nice pasta. Alright? So, this chicken actually took quite a bit of preparing over what I'm normally accustomed to. Nevada, Texas, Utah, Idaho chicken. Which I realize is a wide range, but it's fine, don't worry about it. But yeah, there were genuinely still bones in what was marketed as, which I don't have a problem with bones. it was marketed and sold as boneless chicken breast. Now, could I have gotten some wings and some drumsticks and pulled the meat off of those? Absolutely. Not a problem. It's just a tiny bit more work. Chicken breast is just easier. So that's what I went with. Now you can see there, a little bit of oil in the pan. Start that getting heated up a little bit. And then... So when I make chicken and beef, I put all the spices on the meat first, just because it's easier for me to see what I have done. I heat the pan up, I put the meat in the pan, and then I put some amount of warm water in the pan. You don't want to cool it off a whole lot, but the purpose of the water is to help to diffuse the spices across the meat more evenly. It also limits the rate at which the meat cooks, so you don't get searing. You don't really want seared chicken in Alfredo. I don't want seared chicken in Alfredo. You can make seared chicken in Alfredo if you want. It's up to you. I don't want seared chicken in Alfredo. I don't want crunchy bits. It's like macaroni and cheese. I don't want crunchy bits. I want it to be creamy and smooth. So, a little bit of water helps that, because the maximum temperature you will ever get that water is 212 degrees. It then begins to boil, and it maintains 212 degrees. Physics. Steam. Then it evaporates, and then it's gone, and then things get hotter than that. Not really, but sort of. Anyway, while we're waiting for it to cook, also the water helps cook the meat more evenly, because the water will be, 212 degrees. It'll be the temperature that it's going to get all over a larger surface area of the meat that you are preparing. There's a plethora of reasons why adding water to your cooking dish is very helpful. I did not get footage of us eating the dish because I thought that was kind of silly. So we end here with the cooking of the chicken and setting it to the side off heat to let it set and finish cooking. And that'll be it for this video. As always, don't forget to like it, subscribe it, crank it, and rip it if you had any kind of enjoyment or entertainment or learned anything from this video. And we will see you in the next one.